Hey, what's going on? Mr. Dave here in my office here in Alpine, California, Alpine Sky Studio, and I just want to invite you to watch an interview that some good friends of mine, Greg Lebon and Kathy, his wife, did of me a little while ago. It talks about my whole history in the sort of in the creative side of my life, as well as a little bit more personal stuff, but it was really cool that Greg and his wife Kathy took the time to do this. They're really great people. I've known them for decades. Greg and I have gone to Japan sculpting things in sand, and he has a great passion and is still a thriving professional sand sculpting business. But he's also sharing and taking some time to share what he knows how to do with folks out there on his channel. So Greg Lebon, Archisand. 3 different words will get you there if you go into YouTube and just search that. Greg Lebon, Lebon, and then space Archisand. He's an architect, and he came up with that name 30 years ago or something. Archisand. Greg Lebon, Archisand. You go there, subscribe, man. Show them support, some love, and we can help get the word out, as it were, so more people can see what sand sculpture is all about. Greg's a master at it, and he does amazing stuff, and he's doing a lot of tutorials to show you how to do the various things in sand and sand sculpting, as it were. So I invite you to go ahead and check out this video, and then make sure you subscribe to Greg's channel, and that would be awesome. That would be really, really a good thing in this world. So we need more creative stuff going on. All right. So thank you so much for watching. Take your time, watch it. It's got a good long video, gives you a lot of ideas of what we're doing here and what I have done. So thanks again for your time, and don't forget to subscribe to Greg's channel, and you can subscribe to mine too. Subscribed, new word. So anyway, you try to talk fast and they tangle your tongue up a little bit. So anyways, hope you guys are doing well out there. God bless you. Thanks so much for watching my stuff, and I hope you enjoy this interview. It's really a big part of it tells a big part of my journey. So thanks so much. Check out the video. Let me know what you think. Thanks.
Let's start from the top.
Okay.
Everybody, welcome back to our channel. Tonight, we're going to be interviewing Mr. David Henderson as part of our Influencers and Legends series of sand sculpture interviews. I'm Greg Lebon. This is my beautiful wife, Kathy Lebon.
Hello. Hi.
And we have Mr. David Henderson on our Zoom call as part of this interview. So with that, Kathy, do you want to say a few words?
Certainly.
To get us started?
Yes. Thank you, David. Thank you for joining us. Every time we've talked to you on the phone, it's been very, very enjoyable. And I'm sure tonight's interview will be just as enjoyable.
Yes. So what I always like to do is just get right into it by saying, David, what inspired you to get started into this crazy thing called sand sculpture? And then I'm going to kind of ask you to talk a little bit about even the things that you were doing before sand sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
I know you were playing with teeth, and some of the things you were doing after sand sculpture, which are truly amazing, the rock and waterscape work that you're doing. So, you know, I know we're going to focus a lot about sand sculpture, but I'd also like to focus on other things too. And a little bit about your family and your health challenges. I mean, they're all inspirational. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, really, I think everybody that's listening to this has their story and has their amazing bunny trails and changes and shifts that come into the picture and stuff. But we all start out, you know, in our families and stuff. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. And so I ruled the roost until my brothers got taller than me, and then didn't do so well trying to rule them anymore. But my dad's a psychiatrist. My mom was a singer and a voice teacher, actually. And so we grew up in a family of 5 plus mom, dad. It's, 7. And it was a little bit of a wild house. But I always enjoyed the creative building process. I had trouble in school. I didn't like school much. And if you look at the Asperger profile a little bit, I had a little bit of that kind of thing in there. And so I found myself a lot of times in our yard. We had a nice yard growing up, and like an acre and a half, and it was a full canopy of 10 to 15 foot tall bushes and roads and traveling and probably 200 eucalyptus trees. And so I loved making tree houses. And so I was always creating and doing things with my hands, but more of an isolated kind of a thing to escape, getting away from kind of people and stuff. People were tough, in my younger days. And so really the creativity was kind of a salvation for me to get out of my challenging parts of my life and get into the stuff that really sort of fed my soul, if you will. Didn't do very well in school. I hated school. Somehow I got out. I graduated and went through the ceremony and got an empty folder, diploma folder, because I had to go to summer school after graduation, which was annoying. Anyway, so a little blow to the ego being in school with other people that were still in school, and I was supposed to be out.
Walk. They let you walk. You had the photo.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't want to totally shame me, I guess. So that was good. So, but anyway, got through that. But in high school, talking about creativity, and there was something in my DNA, and I think a lot of us already have that as well. And that is, there's this drive to create. There's this amazing process of taking anything, any medium, wood, stone, dirt, clay. I got in ceramics and creating things. So in high school, in junior high, actually, I made something in ceramics class. The only class I got A's in were creative classes. And so that was part of the story. And that was very fulfilling. And so the creative process was always continuing to draw me forward. I found being alone in the mountains about the best place I could get connected with a higher power, God or whatever. I used to call it he, she, them, or it, because I really didn't know. And the family divorced. And so you had that usual destruction derby that happens in that terrible tragedy of divorce. But I'm really good with my brothers and sisters now. And my mom passed away. She's had polycystic kidney disease, which I inherited, as well as two of my other siblings. And we can talk about that if you want. But moving forward, we ended up getting a job as a dental technician for my uncle, who was a dentist, and began making teeth. So you want to make one tooth match the other side. The laterals need to match the opposing laterals. And so I was doing things with gold, platinum, palladium composites, and heating up porcelain dust. It's sort of a dust. You mix it in with some liquid, and then you paint it on with a brush. And so I was making these things this big. So my task was to learn how to make a tooth look like the one on the other side, because they complement each other. And so that was creating in 3D, albeit this big. And during that time, though, I was at the beach, and this is leading into the sand sculpture side of our equation. And I started a business doing photography, D. Henderson photography, $25 for a business license, $20 for cards. I'm in business. So I would encourage everyone who's listening to this, start a business, take some of your expertise, your hobbies, your passions, start a business, and you can write off space in your house or your apartment or your condo or what have you. You can write off the things that are part of something you love to do and are passionate about as a business. And you can be a consultant. You can actually create photographs or whatever else it is that and have a joy for, especially now online. Oh my gosh, you can just go crazy online with the opportunities that are there for free platforms.
Yeah, great.
It's amazing. So I was at a beach, Crystal Piers in Pacific Beach, California, and I was selling photos at a little stand there, right when you go onto the pier. And I noticed this giant castle. First, it was a pile. I remember seeing two people up on top with a fire hose with yellow shirts, and it was Gary Kirk and Todd Vanderplein, which was great to see the video interviewing him. The guy amazes me that he's still so quick with his mind. He remembers everything so well, and he's looking very healthy. He has a very challenging health issue as well with diabetes and stuff, and it's a kind of a miracle he's still around. But in any event, I saw the pile with a fire hose, and I was, what the heck is that? I'd never seen anything like this before. I'd never seen any sand sculptures before, other than a bucket upside down.
What year was it? I always ask what year. What year?
Camelot, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I thought it was 84.
Yeah, I think it was 84. I'll second that. It was probably 84.
Okay.
And that was the first large pile that I had ever seen. And I was with Donnie DeWeese. And we both got so excited about it that he went and parked his car in a no parking zone, and we lost track, and he got towed, and yeah, it was a crazy story working on that.
That's kind of what sand sculpture does. It kind of grabs hold of you and it just gets you and off you. Everything else disappears. You're just so engrossed in it. But I met him and I just walked up to him and said, what are you guys doing here? And I saw the 3 barricades with the little thing that showed the map of the castle and how it was going to walk. You could walk up around and into it, as it were, enter in. And met him. Todd said, hey, well, we're doing one at SeaWorld, next week. You want to go? I said, sure. So I volunteered for that and was a part of a professional job here in San Diego at SeaWorld. And then, this happened so fast. And within, I think it was a month, he flew me as part of the volunteer team to Florida, and we worked on Treasure Island Castle. And this was so big you could land 3 helicopters simultaneously on these pads that they made. It was absolutely way bigger than the Camelot.
Bluebeard's Castle, right?
Bluebeard's, thank you.
Yeah,
Bluebeard's, and then Treasure, I guess, was after that.
The next year was.
The following year.
We did land helicopters.
I could see that happening though. Okay.
Yeah, knowing Todd, he might try to make it happen.
Well, that's to give a sense of the size to those who are watching. It was humongous. It was that big. You could land 3 helicopters on it if you wanted to. But so we ended up volunteering there, got fairly sunburned, but absolutely astonishing journey. From there, I went on and began volunteering with Todd's company, Sand Sculptors International, in Santa Monica place, and put in a lot of free days, no pay. I think he finally got us to a whopping $50 a day. And but I happily did that. I remember playing, doing buckets, drums at 3 a.m. We would work and never stop almost. We'd work into the night. The whole mall was closed up. We're setting off alarms by banging on our buckets because we just would have fun doing that late into the evening. And so it was absolutely astonishing. All the while I'm still a dental tech, making a living, earning the bills that way.
But I remember that dental tech job for you was you could kind of work your own hours. You had some flexibility. At that time, I was a full-time architect and 9 to 5 every day. And some of these events I got to, but I only got there on a Saturday or a Sunday, or came in the evening, or had to take a vacation day and you only had 2 weeks. So you had a blessing by having a job that had flexibility.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. At 13 and a half years, I did that. But all the while, and this is what I would say to those listening, never stop trying to figure out what you want to do when you grow up. Okay? Never stop trying to figure that out. And I kept telling people, I'm still kind of saying that. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. Well, I'm 62 and my hair fell out, and so I have to wear a hat to make myself have hair, which I love my hat. This is so nice. It's one of the best things a friend of mine gave.
Wonderful.
I just love it.
It matches your facial hair to the T.
I know, it's amazing. White hair is good, so it works out well.
I like to wear a newspaper boy hat myself.
Yeah, well, you got a lot more hair than I do, buddy. So you're blessed. So yeah, it's just an amazing thing. And so I volunteered with Todd's company. Todd started Team Hardcore in '87, I think it was, when we really just went full steam. And some of the photos I sent you showed a practice, and these weren't just practices. We had 12 to 1,500 5-gallon buckets stacked 4 or 5 deep by 6 or 8, 10 wide, all pre-filled with water. And we did this as a practice. No one was doing this in this world of sand sculpture at all. It was more of a casual family get together on the beach.
The whole name Team Hardcore intimidated me. I think that was the team I passed on. And that was about the time I was telling Kathy that I started my little Archisand company.
What was Team Hardcore? What was that part of Todd?
Todd, Greg Glenn, I think, were the 2 real drivers in this all or nothing, die on the pile if you have to, use hundreds, thousands of buckets on a practice because we have to do that in the event. So you always try to simulate the day of the event in practice. And I think that was one of the things that Todd and Gary kind of disagreed about one of the minor
Yeah.
things.
Mhm.
Gary was like, hey, let's just come down, have some fun. Don't worry about all this stuff. And Todd's not, no, we got to shovel it twice as high so that we can shovel it half as high and not be tired. You know, that kind of attitude. And Dave, you spoke exactly to it.
Yeah. Well, it kind of was that way. And, you know, this gets back to the Todd, running into Todd Vanderplein is if you pursue the passions that he has, is a life-changing experience. There's no question. And I greatly appreciate his very welcoming spirit. It was, he very much had oh, well, come check it out. He didn't even know me from Adam. And he said, well, come check it out. So, you know, within no time, I was helping on a pro job, and then Bluebeards. That's right, Bluebeards. And this was in like a month and a half. I mean, it was so fast.
So fast.
And I was totally enthralled by it. It also helps that you're working at beaches where there's not that many pretty girls really ever, right? It's a beach. It never
I
happens.
saw that as part of the whole. That
So-
was part of it. That's part of it.
Yeah, that was part of it in my younger days. And there's something about being inside the ropes that was very intoxicating. And you just, and it's amazing. This is something I've noticed with people who have never done sand sculpture. If you teach them and work with them for one day, and I've done this, and I know you guys have too.
Yeah.
One day you teach them how to do it with a trash can upside down, a 5-gallon bucket on top, maybe a little casting tube. Just doing that by itself blows people's minds, because sand's not supposed to go up 3.5, 4.5 feet straight up. It astonishes people. And to see people who just started that day telling people, well, it's pretty amazing, isn't it? Yes. Well, what we do is, and they're a rock star in one day. I mean, it's amazing. And so the praise you get from utter strangers and people, and this continues on into your career if you pursue this, or it doesn't even have to be a career, just your passion. So that was also a real nice thing to experience. I mean, it seems like a lot of us long to get praised and to get appreciated for something that we're passionate about. And it's so easy with sand sculpture because you can find that the first day you ever do it. Now you're telling someone else how to do it, and it's just sort of a neat dynamic about that. I'm not sure what else you can do that when painting, drawing, people would go, well, yeah, you can tell you're still starting, but with sand, it's just amazing. And so anyway, that process went from competitive sand sculpture with Team Hardcore, and then I branched out and started doing things on my own at the same time. And there's a complete evolution and process of change that occurred, and I think typically occurs with most of these kinds of things, where people get into it, and if they have the passion and the drive, they will want to move on and do their own thing. And so that's one of the realities, I think, of any hobby that's more serious, especially when money gets involved. You then have the evolution of individual artists moving on and branching out, and that sometimes is a little bit of a painful separation and breakup, if you will, especially with those who have brought you in and trained you, and then they're moving on. You also have people with natural senses of ego that you run into, and before you know it, they're the cat's meow, and they got this all figured out, and off they go. And so it's a normal human thing that I think is sort of intrinsic to these kind of things where you get public praise and there's money involved and stuff. So that kind of happened, and it began to evolve.
Yeah. So if you look at that, kind of peel the next layer of the onion, what Todd and Gary Kirk did for sand sculpture is created a whole bunch of layers of onions where people became independent and very successful in this art. Yourself, Greg Glenn, Brad Gall, Kevin Crawford. I'll throw myself in there, Greg Lebon. And I'm sure I'm just scratching the surface, and I'm going to learn more and more as we get to interview more people, how many people Todd influenced that then acquired the confidence to go do it themselves.
Yeah.
And that's a very good point, Dave. And good teachers let their students, go run, little birdie, fly, or whatever. So I think that's valuable for people to understand that for a lot of people, that's the normal process. And as you suggested earlier in this interview, Dave, to be entrepreneurial and to have your own little business with your own little write-offs that support that business is just a great idea in general. And you're seeing it tenfold now. You go onto YouTube and go, how do I start my own business in Etsy? Or how do I sell on Amazon? I mean, it's going viral, especially with the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's a great opportunity for folks. It was harder back in the day. But that was, for my journey anyway, I was able to become a sales agent for Todd's company, for Sand Sculptors International. And I've always taken personal development courses. I did Tony Robbins' Firewalk one time up in LA, and I did walk on the hot coals and I didn't get burned. But that was
is that what happened to you? No,
that's right. I fell down and bumped my head. But so I've always been trying to figure out why I do things that I kind of wish I didn't do, and why I don't do things I need to do and want to do. And so I've always been trying to puzzle through my own blocks, my own handicaps, my own weak points. And through that process, I think I've gained the courage and the willingness to fail. And you hear this all the time on the motivational speaker folks. You only succeed if you're willing to fail and stuff. And so, or be embarrassed. Even that is something that's rather terrifying for people, especially doing sort of a sales thing. Because when you're putting yourself out there, and we kind of all are, if we're in a job, we're putting ourselves in front of our sales managers, our bosses, our coworkers, and how you navigate that landscape will really either you learn from your tumblings and bumblings and move forward and get better at it, or maybe it's not so easy. And that's not for everybody. I know too. Owning your own business, not for everybody. But I've just been on my own. I've not had a employer per se, other than myself. And if I don't do a good job, I fire myself. So it's important that I take care of my clients really well. And but that started way back. And so I was researching, learning, and I learned sales and stuff. Before you know it, I was selling for Todd's company. And this is something that's so amazing, because you start off as an employee or a subcontractor working for your company, especially in the sand industry, like pay a daily rate. And if you don't really know the numbers, because that's sort of that's not your purview, that's the boss's purview. And maybe if he has any sales reps or something, did that a little bit. And then I found out about the fair industry. And I think I was part of this. You were talking to Greg about the development of professional sand sculpting. And I think I played a part in that I went and I paid for the International Association of Fairs and Expositions trade show in Vegas. And I did that 1 year along with the Western Fairs Association. They have directories. You can pay money and get into that directories. I believe it was on my own dollars that I paid for the convention. It was $2,500. And this is 20 years, 30 years ago, whatever it was, as well as a directory ad for Todd. He gave me the art copy or stuff. And this industry had never seen this per se. It had never been professionally marketed. And so we got a booth, and it might've been Kevin Crawford who helped me. And I never considered myself a very talented sculptor. I just struggled and never was really competent that much. And it took me a long time to get better. But I began to think about the sales end, and I went and did those two shows, and we were buried under work. The people just said, this is awesome, because they see the pictures from our other projects. Mm-hmm. Increased foot traffic, repeat attendance, attention from the media that's outrageous and unprecedented. And especially getting people to go to parts of the fairgrounds or the mall or the venue that's not usually got the foot traffic. This will do it. Sand sculpture is an amazing magnet. And people are like, wow, look at what they did. And they can see the formwork below the tops. Oh, there's something emerging here. There's a castle, or there's some kind of a creature, animal, computer part, anything.
Performance
art. It's going to take 2 weeks to finish, come back.
Yeah, and people come back. They go, I don't even go to the fair. I don't like the fair, but I like what you do. I'm coming back to see what.
Yeah, it smells. I'm not really a pig person.
It's true. It's amazing. I heard that over and over and over throughout the years. So eventually, I realized after a particular job in North Dakota that, that we were so swamped from all the work that the association conventions provided for Todd's company. And we had the crew for Sandscapes, or who was going to be Sandscapes, working for Todd. And I wasn't a sculptor that I wasn't that confident, but he said, we need a project manager, Dave, and no one else can do it. So you got to do it. And I was like, okay, I'm the kind of guy that says, oh yeah, I can do that. And then I'm like, oh crap, how am I going to figure out how to do this now? So, say yes, figure it out later was kind of my approach. And so we ended up flying up there to North Dakota in a shopping mall. And there's a whole side of sand sculpture that those of you who aren't sculptors or seen this process, it's an incredible logistic challenge to make this happen without wrecking floors, flooding places, breaking things. You got tons of sand coming into a venue, a place. And some of these places are just pristine. I mean, they're practically marble floors. And you're driving down, past all these crazy, businesses and stuff. And anyway, it's quite an amazing thing. So I went there and found out. And a bobcat, exactly, at 2 a.m. All night long, you're driving sand through these hallways. It's talk about stress. I mean, I wonder how I did it in my latter years now looking back. I was going over all my pictures, Greg, and it was just an incredible remembering of all those jobs that somehow I made them happen. They happened. So, and so you in life, if you push yourself outside your comfort zone, you will be amazed at what you can accomplish and what you can overcome and what you can do. And so that made me go, the gears are turning. I got to start thinking about maybe doing some stuff of my own. And that process actually led to these more philanthropical kind of events, the Ocean Beach Sandcastle Festival, where it was a big pile. It was a big pile like the Camelot. And I had never, I ended up doing one of those. 7 years in a row we did that for the Developmental Public Awareness Week in San Diego. So, and then my idea was you want to be able to get people in wheelchairs off the sidewalk onto the sand. So we had complete ramps with plywood, and that was the emphasis of it. And there was so much heart. And there's some pictures I think I've got about that. Callie Bradford helped me. Donnie was there. Greg, you may have helped out on one of them. I don't remember the full teams. Yeah. But it was from our hearts. That's part of the sand sculpting and the sand sculpture ethos, I think, is it really grabs your heart and it pushes you into it. As a performing art, everything you make will disappear unless you take a picture. And boy, do I have pictures. Oh my gosh, there's so many pictures. Because I was a photographer, I got a picture of the first sandcastle I had ever made, ever. It's somewhere in my stack somewhere.
This job you just described, was that you were out on your own now?
I was working with Todd for a while, and then, and I think I went out on my own and made a little brochure. By the way, it's sort of a similar process as we see now with online stuff. There's a lot of platforms that are free. Well, for sand sculpture, for me, I did free jobs. I did them for U.S. Navy, and the idea is to get enough jobs that you can get under your belt to get a referral letter. Now it would be a video, still photographs, maybe a little media clip. And now you have enough to make a brochure. I have this rinky-dink little black and white brochure. Sand Sculpture Coalition was the name of my little company.
I have a copy of that brochure.
There you go.
You sent it to me in 1989 or something like that.
Going in the video.
And we'll be able to put it over as you're talking about it.
Perfect.
With a personal note from you saying, hey, this is going to be a busy year. Come join me on this project, that project, this project, that project.
Wow. Yeah.
It was fun.
I looking at the pictures was so great because actually my brain did start to work. I've had 4 major surgeries, and the anesthesia really does sort of make it hard to get your memory to work quite right. But it was really neat to look at them, and I began remembering all the issues with this or that job. The sand was terrible, and I've got 20 tons in a pile in the building that I want, and none of it would work. Now what do I do?
Right.
So there's always these glitches, and each picture had a story. So I did the big jobs, and while I'm doing this, starting my company, still a dental tech for a while. Finally, I took the leap in 93, I think it was, and went full time into doing sand sculptures. And I am astonished at how many. I think the last day before I started shifting into the rock work, I had 235 days on a pile somewhere in America, not counting travel days, that I wasn't home. And our youngest son, my firstborn, was Daniel.
Is that
he was
in a single year?
In 1 year, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I came home one time and I went to hug Daniel, his mom's holding him, my wife Claudette, and I said, "Hey buddy, how you doing?" And he flinched and pulled back. And it was like, well, that's not good. He forgot who daddy was. So I went, we got to find a plan B here. But the sand sculpting career was just an incredible thing. I did the New York State Fair and the South Florida Fair, both with exquisite sand. And really great projects. Worked with a lot of great folks like you, Greg, and Dan Belcher helped me on a bunch of them. And so it's absolutely an amazing ride. The corporate process, though, of sand sculpture, I do believe, kind of took off right about that time. We did the fairs and festivals, conventions, and I would like to think I had something to do with that. Todd, of course, had the provenance to be able to put that into the visual aspect of what they're doing and stuff. And so that was unquestionably, his amazing talents and creativity and discipline and thorough flushing out of these various projects. I mean, the guy is just an animal, just amazing. He's practically a genius. I think that's not an unfair thing to ascribe to Todd. He's quite an amazing individual. So I ended up rooming with him quite a bit, by the way. So that was, there's some stories there, but we probably will talk about those.
Yeah,
Kathy wants to hear them, right?
Well, what I want to hear about, though, are a couple of descriptives on. We looked at some of the photos, and was there a train with dry ice coming out of it? What was that? There was a dragon.
That was a tractor.
There were the tractor. Those were some of the.
There's some of the things that I like to think I added to the sand sculpture palette, if you will. I bought a smoke machine, and so we would find places that we could put them in. I almost always had lights. I put lights in everything. So not only are you carving something that must look competent and appropriate for the subject matter, but you also have to figure out lighting. Now, the lighting is just extension cords, and sand and water. Well, water and electricity aren't always a good combination. So a lot of times we would stick our fingers in the sand and you'd feel like right through your fingertips, a little, zzz, So, okay, so there's a little juice in the castle right now. So anyway, gotta power through it. Just keep going, But there were jobs with hundreds of lights. One of them in particular that Dan Belcher helped me on. It was a South Florida Fair, and it was an alien city. And oh my gosh, there were so many lights. There were probably 200 lights that we put into the thing. Also, little tiny Christmas lights that we put in on a castle I did in Solano County Fair, and made it look like all the troops on the Wizard of Oz. Oh, whoa, and they're marching with their little torches. Kind of like I put them in there around one of the turrets, or 2 or 3 of them, and mimic that. And so we're always trying to think what to do. There's a Christmas thing I did in Ocean Beach, but I did that for many, many years. It was more of a freebie because it was local. And I put the kind of little light bulbs that have a flickering red flame in them, and they look like a fire. So we actually had carolers holding these candles, and I actually put the flickering lights. So all the 7 or 8 carolers had candles with flickering lights that wiggled in. It was, and that job also,
I think I got the lights, and you hid the string, and so that you couldn't see the string.
Yeah, you just hide everything, buried everything. I put a piece of plastic over the juncture where the cords went, and all the lights, you uplight, you don't ever want to see the bulbs kind of thing. But sometimes there was a bit of a, in the field of sand sculpture, some people are like, lights, that's kind of like, that's not pure. We need to have just the pure light. So that was kind of weird, but I just thought it was more dramatic. And all the way to the Old Man Winter, which had blue light bulbs in his eyes. And then I managed to figure out where to put it.
Old Man Winter blowing the winter.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It has a 2-inch PVC pipe laid on the form, and somehow I figured out where to put that during the pound up. So that was preset during the entire pound up. And you can see from the photos how tall that monster was. It was 20 feet wide at the top, which was 12, 15 feet above the ground. So extremely huge scale. And so we'd run that and blow smoke out. And so I was always trying to do things to make it more dramatic. I used I used a rubber liner in Bangor, Maine, and made a pond lake around Paul Bunyan sand sculpture with trees around it. And there's a picture of that with a lighthouse. And then also, we haven't talked about it, but the issue of foam being added into sand sculpture projects, either as a foundational weight reducing element, and it almost got to where we were spackling sand on carved foam, which isn't really a sand sculpture, but you're using sand and the look is the same, although you're getting things that are hanging out obviously beyond what sand really can do. Although nowadays the artistry in the sand that we're finding is so strong when it dries out. I mean, I remember Todd, I think he did the Cheshire Cat with a complete rotational curl on the tail. And that was just Santa Monica Mall or Santa Monica Place sand. And that stuff was just a rock. I mean,
yeah, it turned into a dirt clod.
Yeah.
So some of the photos that you shared with us that we're going to populate on this interview showed buildings, I think, from Philadelphia on a bed of foam, series of sections of foam.
And there was someone standing
in that
next
one
to
of the
it.
photographs. It looked like maybe it was Dan Belcher, but I'm not sure.
I think it was Dan, yeah.
Okay. And I looked at that and I thought, is there any foam inside the buildings as they went up, or were the buildings all sand sitting on about a 4 or 5 foot tall?
It looked like they were 30 feet tall.
The buildings were tall. They were.
Yeah, that's not sand. There's no way that's sand. There's no way, because you can see the foundation. If that was all sand, it'd be on foam, and foam is not rigid enough, and there's no lateral compression around it to have that be stable. So Dan Belcher can confirm whether or not, but I think a lot of that was more spackle. Yeah, spackle torture, we called it. Spackle torture, yeah.
So this leads me to this next question as I was looking through the pictures with Kathy. There's a huge elephant.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And
there's got to be a story behind the elephant.
Spackle torture.
Spackle torture, yeah.
Yeah.
What's with this elephant?
Yeah, that was for the 1996 Republican National Convention here in San Diego, and got a call elephant. It was our logo or mascot for the event, and and I hadn't done anything like that before. And you always say yes. That's the rule. Say yes. Figure out how the heck you're going to do it later. That's the rule. Right. So we went ahead and got the job, and then I consulted with ProFoam here in San Diego County, San Marcos area, and I knew the guys there from other events for getting just polystyrene foam blocks, 2 pound, I think. It's a little denser. And Todd had been doing this technique for a long time with a lot of the theme party boxes, and it's a sort of a toolkit you get, and one of the things is blocks of foam that you can stack around, so you're not having to carry in an extra 1,000, 2,000 pounds of sand just to occupy space.
Right.
And so I kind of knew about them. So they actually we created somehow I made a maquette of it, a small foam guy, and then they cut it into 1-inch pieces, and then each 1-inch piece they extrapolated that scale wise up. And so then they cut 1 foot thick pieces, so you didn't have the sandwiching. You can see it in the photographs with the red glue that they use between the foam pieces. And then we carved it all down, brought in the corn's edges, put in the stars and the shorts and the sunglasses on them and everything else. And then we got a hopper and sprayed it with glue mixed with sand. And that sort of stuck on the outside. Then we installed it down at the Embarcadero in San Diego, and we added, I think, 20 tons of sand at the base. It was a plywood platform. We put plywood at an angle up to the top with enough steps on it to stabilize the sand, packed it up, carved the logo, and there you go. And I mentioned, I think, the email. Then for years after that, I used parts of that elephant for my waterfall. So when the ears came off and became an overhang for a waterfall, So, you just keep recycling this stuff and make use of it. But yeah, that was a story on that guy.
We were wondering if you owned one of those hot wires.
Yeah,
cut the
you
foam.
were actually cutting foam.
Yeah, the guy ProFoam made one for me, but you can get those now, I think, from various places. They use them now in artificial rock construction quite a bit. Some people actually will just use foam exclusively, and I'm not a part of that thinking, because I repair a lot of the fake rock stuff that's done that way, both castings where they're precast rock shapes, and they just put them together and they just merely mortar the joints. Well, is shifting, expansion, contraction, settling, roots, and all the rest.
Yeah,
It's not a long-term thing.
Yeah.
Right? You still need to
Yeah.
put wire mesh and shotcrete. Yeah.
But you know what?
you
I
gotta-
can see how this the rock sculpture that you do goes back to the making teeth.
Yeah, it all gets back to,
Yeah.
creating something in 3 dimensions. And I mentioned this, I think, on one of our text or something, sand sculpture is to sculpture what digital photography, the technology, is to photography. I don't know how many thousands of dollars I spent on photography. I've got thousands of photographs in little envelopes that had 36 or 24 pictures in it. Each one was anywhere from $4 to $5.60 or something. And, there's a negative and a printed out thing. And if you got 1 or 2 out of a roll of 36, you're happy, right? Well, digital photography, the learning curve is just exponentially faster. You can do infinite photos, examine them as you go, delete the ones you don't like, and start over and continue this process. Well, I had to wait, to get the film back. Yeah, it's just crazy. So sand sculpture, I think, and I haven't heard this out there as much as I think it should be, is for artists and people who want to learn how to sculpt in 3 dimensions. Sand is the fastest, quickest, most efficient way to learn how to represent something in 3 dimensions. Todd mentioned that Michelangelo built Pietà, I think he said, in sand firstly, and that would be a smart move, So I think anyone who wants to sculpt anything, start off with that, and that particularly lines up with making fake rocks. You can make artificial rock models, if you will, in sand just instantly. I mean, rocks were the fastest thing. Rocks go in your sand sculpture when you're running out of time, right? So rocks and waves were the 2 things that we like.
We do.
And waves.
We always had these rock outcroppings
Yes.
holding the castles up, and we'd do this very detailed castle. We'd run out of time, and then it's time to do the rocks. That was
waves.
You have your toolkit, your toolbox, your tool bag. It was for us anyway, which went to Kamiishi, which you talked about, and was another experience I treasure to the end of my days. And I got photos of that somewhere too.
You did the futuristic castle in Kamiishi, right?
I don't think I made that one, but maybe I did. I don't remember going. I thought I had, but I went to Nagoya and Kamiishi. I can't remember if I made the second trip or not. I've always thought I did. I've always told people I went to Japan 3 times, but you have your toolbox, and then you end up with your tool box, or I should say subject matter elements that you get in your repertoire. Okay, so one of my things was ribbons and pointed arrows and sweeping elements. I always liked adding those into my pieces as a bridge in a bringing together these different elements. And I really enjoyed the work looking at my pictures that included that. And I hadn't seen that. I have not seen that. I didn't see it back in the day either. Forced perspective a little bit, which people are getting extremely just crazy good at now. I think somehow we grabbed actual sculptors. I wasn't an actual sculptor. I like bikinis and
master's degrees. Yeah,
that's right. Beach babes and sunshine. I mean, and the ocean water breezes. How can you miss? So, but the amazing work they're doing now is just beyond belief, and I'm immensely humbled by what they're doing, because my stuff's cartoony and kind of goofy, but there were some elements, making stars on a board on your form, letting them dry off, and then gently laying them down in a little notch so the star is actually standing on one of its points, floating in space.
I noticed the stars in some of the photographs, and
you get your laborers to do that. You get someone who's never done this. It's like, a little patty cake, make a little hamburger, and then cut out the thing, and you get a crew of those guys going. And then you're running out of time, the sparkle, the bling, the things that can add into your piece and get it done are those sort of things. Hearts, stars, and then the ribbon elements can come together. I was kind of bored if I got into too much detail. I don't know if I sent you the picture of Big Ben, but Todd had a job and I did Big Ben, and I was just going to shoot myself. I'm like, how many little windows do I have to do? I'm like, oh.
Yeah, and he wanted perfect. Yeah, he wanted it to be exactly Big Ben. Yeah.
And it was great to be forced into these design parameters, which in fact is what creativity is in any piece. You have to put yourself into parameters. I don't know if you want to talk about the corporate aspect of that and sacrificing your desires for your creative expression for that of your client, because that's a very important
Yes.
aspect of the
That's good.
professional side of this.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That's-
been a
that's-
motto of our
Yes.
company at Archisand
But
is
so many people,
responding to the client.
you know, it doesn't, they want to put their ego in, or they want to do what they, and this is not just specific to sand sculpting. This is like to any type of work, any type of art. They're too self-centered now, narcissistic. And it's like, no, it's what your client wants.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of sculptors are one dimensional. They know how to do a castle.
That
And,
too,
you know,
that's an issue too.
If you want me to do a castle, I'm your guy. But if you want me to do something specific to what your business is, I may not be able to do that. And that to me is the challenge in doing corporate work, which Archisand does a lot of it. Some of the biggest companies in the world, is to just adhere to what they want, which means I'm not able to do the stars and the ribbons like you were able to do maybe for some of your projects when the situations permitted it. Anyhow, as I was thinking about this interview with you, David, I thought of that aircraft carrier that we did in San Diego at the Navy Air Station. And you had a little bit more faded memory about this project than I did, but you were shorthanded and you were calling anybody and everybody because this aircraft carrier was, I don't know, 120 feet long.
It was big.
It was big, yeah. And
It had all the planes on the top.
yeah, the planes with the wings folded up, and I remember that Lee Vanderplein and Vanessa showed up, and they were helping out. And Vanessa, I think, was maybe 16, 15, 16, 17 at the oldest. And while we were working on that project, there was going to be the big fireworks show, and I think you got a story about that one. But somebody came to Vanessa and said, "Do you want to enter the bikini contest?" And she said, "Okay." Well, I don't know, our viewers may not know about Vanessa Vanderplein, but she was like the first runner-up to be on the Olympic team in the ribbon gymnastics. Yeah. And gorgeous. She's gorgeous to this day. And she's actually in Hollywood and movies and doing stunt doubles and roller derby.
Yes.
So she's a no-nonsense, go get 'em girl. But she went out there and won that bikini contest hands down because she was an Olympian and she could strut and walk and oh God, and of course Todd wasn't there. But that was craziness and that was hilarious. And I think we did get the aircraft carrier done. We worked all the way till dark to do it.
Yeah, that was an amazing job. But what you're mentioning is one of those happenstance situations that just presents itself and off you go. So John Rayolf, I believe his name was doing a contest down in Florida. It was the first international sand sculpting competition or something of that sort. And he was getting high quality, good talented people down there. And he made these prize money. The purse was pretty big. I mean, I think it was $2,800 or something like that. And this is 28 years ago. It was a long time ago. That's when that was the money. That was serious money.
That'd be like double now.
That's right. It'd be double that now. So he ended up convincing, because I wasn't comfortable being an artist still. I was still insecure. In fact, Brad Gull was such a sweetheart. I do jobs for Todd, and the Ventura County Fair was one of them, and they did a walrus, and I, for the life of me, could not do the second eyeball to match. They'd all look like Marty Feldman, and I just said, I hate that. I can do one eye, but not two eyes. So I always had these winking. All my sculptures in the beginning had winks. They were like, "Oh, how are you doing?" Yeah, winking. So it was just bizarre. So I didn't have the confidence. So John convinced me to come down and be the official photographer. So he paid my trip down there. And once I get there, he goes, "Dave, why don't you should compete in this thing just for fun. We got a little pile, 50 tons or whatever it was, 30 tons. And you just go do something, it's okay." But anyway, I entered the thing, and I had come up previous to that with the idea of using balloons and packing sand around them, kind of like a mud dauber. and then popping the balloon and then carving out these, they're almost like lanterns, jack-o'-lanterns, if you will, but
They're hollow inside. Yeah, phenomenal.
Completely hollow. Yeah. So I got one of those Bozo punch guys that has sand at the bottom. You punch Bozo and he goes, and it comes back up. So this guy was like 4 feet tall. So I did. So I went ahead and I packed the sand all the way up 4.5 feet or whatever it was. I even put a 9-volt battery, little red light on the top, wired that into the whole thing. So it had a little red light on the top. There wasn't rules against putting lights in there, I guess. So anyway, long story short, they called it Saturn Moon Base because I didn't name it. I didn't know what it was. And I didn't finish out the site at all. But it was so unusual, unique. I won. In my first contest, I ever entered by myself. And there's a picture of that holding the trophy up there, and I still got it in my garage.
I remember when that happened. I wasn't there, but the stories came back to me, and I was truly impressed. Hey, Dave Henderson is creative, and he's trying to come up with different ways.
It's a great story.
Yeah, to go about this.
And that gets back to starting and trying something and going for it. You got to go for
it. And I don't remember if this was the event or not, but this just came to me now as everyone was running to the bank to cash their check because they didn't know if the event had generated enough income for all the checks.
I heard I was the only one whose check didn't bounce because I had to fly back early. So I was standing next to John and I said, okay, I need to check. And he's like hemming and hawing because he knows he's not getting the foot traffic and the attendance in the gate at all. And it was pretty much his last $2,500 or whatever. My check was good. And I went straight to the bank, I think in, Clearwater, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
And I think I was the only artist who got paid. It was like, oh, it was bad. But, things go where they go, like Vanessa competing. So that aircraft carrier, which I know I have a picture of it, somewhere I have the picture actually of the fireworks going past over my head. Because we had a ground burst and I was doing a time exposure at that moment. And I know I have a picture of that somewhere.
I challenge you to populate this interview with that picture.
I'm going to have to dig it up, but it's just mind boggling how many pictures there are that I'm trying to go through. But, it goes on and on. So each time you conquer one little thing, you step out on faith that something will be remedied, something will happen, it'll work out somehow. And if it doesn't perfectly, then you're going to learn something. They build on each other. So fast forward to 1998 at the New York State Fair, which I'd done a number of times. Actually, I'll preface that by saying the first job I did maybe it was 1992 or something like that at the New York State Fair. And I don't know if this is something to fill you in on here, but part of me as a businessman was also fascinated by this perception of establishing a value or a product. When you're building something in sand, it can have huge swaths of the piece be nothing. It doesn't have to be detailed out. But Todd was good that he trained us, you want to have a good level of detail, continuing that throughout the whole project. Well, I ended up doing the first job at the New York State Fair, and Joe LaGuardia was the entertainment buyer, I think it was. And this project had a beautiful spired castle, and I really just took to Todd's training, really. And I think if those of us who've been through Todd's school of sand sculpting and castle building, we kind of, people look at that and they go, oh, that guy worked with Todd, I can tell,
Right.
But so I went ahead and did that, corbels, crenellations, finials, and did windows and changed the perspective as you go down a little bit, whatever. But anyway, that job, again, it gets back to these crazy things. The customer doesn't know. And so what's the sense of value? They loved what we did. I was hired for 15, 16 years consecutive after that. And it gets to the same kind of thing I think musicians have. If you're well known and you're going to draw 100,000 people, you darn well can get a lot of money. Well, your show's only 3 hours. So how much did you make per hour? Oh, I don't know, 20, 30, $40,000 an hour. That's pretty good money. But it's the buildup of that. But with sand sculpture, it started off that way. And I ended up with that. I wasn't trying to do more than I did, but I think I had a short crew. I couldn't get people. And then there you are. So you establish a pattern, a level of detail as you're working down the pound up. And you just know as you're going, okay, I've got 3 days, I've got 2 days. Okay. And you want it to look balanced and even. And so that was always sort of the Todd strategy that he mentioned in your interview that I think is a good one. We do want to try and do that unless there's some other reason not to. But then let me then go to 1998, where, and this is the journey from a little pile on the beach to a 412 ton sand castle in a building, 33 and a half feet tall. And I mostly built it by myself with one guy doing the windows. And there's some pictures there. The pound up was built with 4 foot tall forms. I'd never seen that done before. I haven't seen it since, but maybe they have. So the walls are all 4 foot lifts, 4 feet. So you don't just step up 2 feet, you step up 4, because I had to do that to get the height fast enough to achieve the size and the pitch that was going to be needed.
And you were confident
so
the sand could handle it.
Yeah. And we had railings I did with 2x4s that alternated. So if you fell down 3 tiers, you could hit something and not go all the way down. I wonder if anyone would even be allowed to do these things nowadays because of the risk management that attorneys have, made us all be aware of. But anyway, and that hall had lights in it and too as well. Callie Bradford was helping me on that. And I think I mentioned this to you. This was a 22-day job, and we started off, she was on the top, and she's using a 3/4 inch trowel, and she's 35 feet from where people can even see what she's doing. And so I was trying to help her, can you switch to a 1.5 inch trowel? We gotta move.
Bigger scale.
Yeah. And she bless her heart is I think wherever she is, she's a free spirited person and was such a great mentor to me too. She brought me under her wing and also gave me encouragement and was just a sweet soul.
We lost Callie about less than a year ago.
Yeah.
So
it'd have been nice to be able to get a record of her stories. She'd have a bunch. She's one of the old timers, way back. But anyway, she finally said, I can't work like this. So she actually declined to go forward and flew home. So then I'm like, I got 412 tons and I'm by myself now. Now what do I do? No other professional on the job. And the clock's ticking. And so what do? Well, I found somebody in New Jersey who's afraid of heights. I can't remember his name. And he came up there and he did nothing but windows. And I think he'd been like a beach dabbler. And he comes here and he got this insane pile of sand going up, into the heavens. And
motto.
Yeah.
Todd's motto.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that. So we ended up carving it down the day before the last day, and we finished it. It was an all-nighter, I think. They had a microburst storm on the fairgrounds that had never happened. The fair was 125-year-old history, and it killed 2 people. The trees fell over and crushed some people. The fair, for the first time in its entire history, closed and did not open. So no one saw what these pictures, if you're showing the finished castle, actually look like.
Wow.
So I got the pictures, I got some videos and stuff, but it was just like, really? And I was driving home and it was just like Back to the Future with wires on the ground, sparking blue sparks, and to get to my hotel, and it was 2 days to get back. To get my equipment and stuff. But
of all the projects and photos you sent my way as we built for this interview, that castle
It's beautiful.
is beautiful. It stands to me at the top of your work, and to know that you poured your heart and soul out, and that's Dave Henderson. That's very cool. It's
amazing because I didn't really study architecture much, and it was all free-handed and made up as we go. Most of my jobs, and this is what I really enjoyed, and this is my personal strategy to all the work that I did, is I would establish blocks of sand in interesting ways, oriented in certain ways to the primary viewing angle, if there was one. Secondary, third boxes laid out on the platform and on the space we have, the footprint. And then I would figure out what to make. I mean, we had Cal spas, American spas, LA spas. We would build their spa, and we put dinosaurs in there because it was Jurassic Park time, and we put cows upside down, pigs just rolling around, piled up inside of the hot tubs. I think they sold a lot of hot tubs.
Yeah, I love it.
So that gets back to your idea of accommodating the parameters of a customer. There's tons of room to be creative in there.
Yes.
I mean, it's weird how some of these artist types would resist some of that. And I find it's sort of helpful to put yourself into these parameters, these boxes, if you will, these borders, stay within it like you do with your corporate work. And it's extremely creative. And how do we represent it in a way that not only represents the client's product or service, but also shows whimsy and curiosity and dynamism and something fascinating, a cute little, like if you walk around here, there's a little squirrel in the corner sticking his tongue out at you, or there's one picture I have of a giant steer with his big horns, and he lassoed the cowboy. And I think I got that picture. So all of that's all just made up on the spot. I never pre-planned anything. So it was a big, open, wide black hole of what could it be on all my jobs. And then you start to get into your formulas of, okay, we're going to do forced perspective tents because it's a fair thing. Oh man, I have spent so many thousands of hours on a fairgrounds with the smell of popcorn and screaming children. I mean, it gets to the point, as you know, after a while, you're trying to produce something and your creative juices are flowing. You're excited about what can be done, but you don't want to be bugged. I got stuff to do. I can't talk to every people because the person will come up and say, how'd you make that? And you tell them, they walk away. Another person takes their place all day long. Da, 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 da. So you start to go a little nuts. So I think I made some posters. You put them around, you plaster them everywhere. Some people, I think, in the past put the answers to the questions on their backs, on their shirts. I've heard that.
It's just sand and water. Yeah, we did that.
It's just sand and water, yeah. And so, you find ways to navigate.
We used to wear headphones, but not turn them on.
That's the cloaking device. I'm invisible when I have my headphones on. I can't hear you.
Yes,
and I got to tell you,
don't even ask it. If they do ask, you can ignore them, and they think you're listening to something loud. Yeah.
Well, I did the Broward County Fair, and that was one I mentioned to you on the phone before, where they put fake green sort of tarp stuff on the ground, and I had to ride the Bobcat about 100 feet to the tent, dump the stuff, so I couldn't rotate or I'd completely mangle the whole thing. Well, I did that thing, got it done through the night. You're pounding up from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And it was a very tight quarters, if you will. So I have myself working on this space because you're always trying to manage the other booths. They want to have their space to sell their products, or the entertainers, musicians, what have you. And I ended up with my earphones on, and you get to where people are going, hey man, what's in the sand? How do you make it do that? And you're like, you ignore them. Well, I ended up with more than one time, these people are going, hey, just yelling at me. I can totally hear them, but now I'm like committed. I can't turn around or something, because then my cover's blown. So I just act, and then they eventually end up just going, oh man, whatever, whatever, and they walk away. So, the cloaking device, which was the headphones, kind of did their job for a while, but after a while you get kind of worn out, and it's a bit of the tension between entertaining and engaging with the public, which is part of why you're there, and creating something that has really become something that your heart and soul is put into. Because even the cartoony stuff, I wanted to find things that are woven together in interesting ways, and it was very compelling. And that gets back to your original question about getting into this creative endeavor. The spectrum is so wide open with the sand work, as long as you have the pitch right and you know how to make things sustain themselves with the pound up techniques we're using now. The creative process is it takes a part of your brain, and it's hard to reconcile sometimes the engagement with the public along with that. I think sand sculptors who do this professionally, and maybe even just the competitive side, but more professionally, we're very rare breed. There's just not, you have to have such a unique collection of skill sets and your personality style, and to be able to do this work under the stressful conditions, in very difficult logistics challenges to get things in where they go. They almost never work out the way they're supposed to. So I commend anyone who's doing this for a living, yourself, Greg, because I'm making rocks now. It's very exciting. I make rocks, but it's a different thing. I'm at home. I'm not traveling.
Let's talk rocks.
Let's talk rocks for a minute. Rocks. So when did you kind of hit that tipping point where you kind of said, rocks is for me instead of sand? And what were some of the factors that influenced kind of that change or that change?
Yeah, I started telling you a story about Daniel flinching when I came home, and I realized, traveling is just it's just too much, and it was wearing me out too. I mean, when you set up a circuit and you go to this one, you rent a car to this one, then you rental car to the next one, and then you fly home and you get home. And if you don't give yourself a good week or two to recover, I was just going to town, and it got kind of old. And I also was talking to Will Rounds, a sand sculptor guy that
Go round.
I'm not sure you remember Will. So
Yeah.
he was a neat guy. And he had the same burnout effect, I think, or there was something about sand sculpture that he just, I think it was more what we're talking about, the certain attributes you need to have. And I think he just didn't really enjoy it that much. So he was starting to do artificial rock stuff. And so I went and flew to Arizona and went to one of his projects and chatted with him. But I ended up just started dabbling in that while still doing sand work, a lot of conventions, a lot of theme party boxes. We talked about foam. One of the clients asked me to build, can you make a castle that you could just put in here, just plop it in here? And so I actually carved out some extra foam blocks I had and made a little castle for him, and then just glued sand on it, the same that I had in my buckets. I have 28 buckets, I think it is now, of convention sand, and use that to fill in the box. Got blocks to put it up there, so you end up with a pretty impressive piece in one day. And I don't know if people realize, these things are barn burners. You get in there, you're hoofing up these 70-pound buckets of sand, and you got to wiggle them because they compress and pack, because you want them to take the least volume and stuff. Pack it up into something, turn it into something pretty, get the lights in it, get the logo done. And logos. Oh, I hate logos. They just kill me. They just wear me out. Oh my gosh. I end up doing little tiny quarter-inch little thin streams, and it just shoot me.
Remember Ko Tanaka, who's a master at them.
Oh, you're lucky if you.
Logos. We like logos.
And
delegate.
It's right out of that book,
You
How to Win Friends and Influence People. Everyone wants to see their name in sand.
Exactly.
And it means the companies want to see their name in sand.
Yeah.
And
so we did a lot of that. So a lot of convention boxes and stuff, kept going for a company down here in San Diego, and and that was going quite well for a while. And then my health started to fade a little bit. I was experimenting with the artificial rock and concrete construction and doing a few little jobs, and the same kind of thing. I did some free projects for a friend of mine. Just he paid the materials, and I built it. Got a picture, got a referral letter, got video, got some photographs, made some flyers. And then I used a sand sculpture to talk my way into the very front of the entire home and garden show at the Del Mar Fair by telling the producers and the producers of the event, hey, I can do a sand sculpture 8x8 box, and I'll say welcome, and I show them a picture of my stuff. And he goes, cool. Okay, well, we'll give you that spot right there for free. It was the first thing every guest went past to get into this whole big show. I wasn't in one of the slots, one of the stalls you have. It was a 20 by 20 booth. So I put my 8-foot box in there and actually launched more of my rock work business. I started building ponds actually at first. And then that led into artificial rock because I ran into a contractor that was doing that work. And he's like, can you do this? Like, yeah, sure. I don't know. Got to figure it out though, because I said yes. So there you go. So I started learning.
What was this around 2003, 4, 5, 6?
I would guess, yeah, something like that. Time and dates start to change and fizzle out, and the specifics of things sort of fade a little bit. I probably could do a little research and figure it out based on the date stamps on photos and stuff. But so that began to grow. So the sand sculpture faded a little bit. I still did the New York State Fair and the South Florida Fair as long as they would have me. And then the leadership changed, and they sort of went away from that. But it was consecutive years, 15, 16 years on both those. Those are my showpiece projects. I did Crazy Horse, which is something I'm very proud of. And I'm astonished looking back that I worked on that for 36 hours to finish it. I met Crazy Horse's great granddaughter, Bobane Running Eagle, I think was her name. Such a sweet lady. There's so much heart that goes into sand sculpture projects. It's just incredible. You can make something, it's ethereal. Everyone knows it's going away, and they're puzzled by the fact that that's going to happen, and they're pushed into the moment. it's not going to last. So really enjoy this. Look into the eyes of these creatures, these animals, these people. We did something for after the Oklahoma City bombing that was incredible, and I was just part of the team there, and it was along this long run of overhang lean-to buildings, and I can't remember what job that was. It was a Todd job, or I don't know who did it, but I was a part of that, and I got photos for that. So you take this medium, and it's ethereal and impermanent, and you represent things. And as I getting back to the heart in the beginning of this, someone who's never done this before, ever, you give them one little class and show them how to do a trash can in a 5-gallon bucket. Nothing else. Show them how to do that. You pull the bucket off, you pull the the trash can, the bucket off, and they sit back in amazement.
Yes,
they're staggered by it. So
what I always call them seminars. That's not what they are.
Workshops.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And
wedding.
Like they're what they churn out is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because 91X contest, I think, that we did with a Sandscapes team, basically. You remember that? Did you dig on that? Were you helping with that? Greg?
I shoveled
it was enormous.
all day long for that 91X logo, right?
That thing was huge. I don't know why we didn't win. And I got the best photo of Donnie DeWeese. Did you see that one? You got to check that photo, Donnie. He's just great. He's got quite a look on his face. And Donnie is such a sweet guy and a character and a half. I love it. He's so funny.
I got a picture of him and his brother Michael giving me a bare ass, and I was taking a picture from the other side of the pond or whatever that waterway is there.
Yes.
Oh God.
Yeah, Donnie's a piece of work. So all along the way, you're doing stuff. You meet engaging, interesting people. And it's been an amazing ride. We did bonsai trees into that first sandcastle at the New York State Fair to really give it scale. You want to make this thing, moving if it's going to be animated anyway, in lights, and as much as you can do to give it the bling and the sparkle, and each one of these new additive things is just part of the fun of it. Oh, I got to tell you this, Greg. We did the big beach castle in Ocean Beach, and I've never seen this since, but I'm sure it would be a consistent phenomenon. I had my smoke machine there, and this was a Halloween theme because it was at that time of year. I think it was
when you say smoke machine, you're going, cannabis is legal now, right?
So we had a ghoul or something on the beach, an old man, and he was kind of giving that look like he's blowing smoke. We had the smoke machine hooked up. Well, he blew his smoke, the sun's going down, and the color of the pink sky was identical to the outline of the fog coming out of the guy's mouth. So it was like the sunset was right there on the beach. Same color of pink was out there in the distance. I got a video somewhere of that thing, but you push the button, and it was it was amazing. So it was really something. I really have I can't get over it.
I don't know, Dave.
Does smoke come in different colors?
Well, the sunset and the activity of the particles in the smoke.
Could you buy like a smoke pellet that was blue or gray
Well, you probably could. This was just a liquid you poured. It was always white smoke. So it's kind of funny. It's probably banned by now. I don't know, but
right, AQMD. Yeah, the quality management. It's not going to let you do it.
Right.
Yeah, so there's the professional side, the competitive side. On that topic, I helped out with I think it was Team Sandscapes, and competed in 1999 at Henderson. I think it may have been close to the last time there. And the one thing I remember from that was I think they won. I think it had something to do with like it was Darwin's. It was, I can't remember exactly, but I may be confusing jobs and whatever. But we did the pound up, and I'd been making, I hadn't been more sedentary. This was back in '99, so I wasn't full scale. I don't think as much as I might have otherwise been, but we ended up doing the pound up, and I was pretty good at shoveling up 10, 15 feet with a shovel, and I could throw the buckets up pretty good. And I just sort of throw myself into it. Well, that night I woke up and I didn't drink enough, and I had simultaneous both legs, top quadricep, the one underneath your leg, both cramping so bad. that I was clawing the wall of this hotel, crying out to God to kill me because it was so bad. Those of you who've had leg cramps, you know that there's not a much sharper pain than that. It was another one of those little side adventures that you don't want to repeat, at least that part.
Yeah. So you know that maybe it's a good lead into some of some more recent history, Dave. I remember I was on a job just a year ago, and I was at the Anaheim Convention Center, and I gave you a call, and I said, "How are you doing, Dave?" And it was when you were doing your dialysis 2 to 3 days a week, and you said, "Hey, Greg, call me anytime you want between, you know, like 3 and 5 on Tuesday or Thursday, because I'm just sitting here watching blood go in one tube and out the other."
Yep.
And I don't know that, you know, recently you had a kidney transplant. You know, you found your new ticket to life, and you look great, Dave. You really do. And I remember Kathy and I called you. You had just gotten home from the hospital. You're home maybe 1 or 2 days, and you barely had the strength to answer the phone. And Kathy, you started asking a few questions about Dave. And once we got you talking, we could see the energy.
Well, he was very tired. It was like, maybe we shouldn't be on the phone. Once you got wound, it was like, oh my God, he's taking off. His spirit is there. It's all there. It's then we had a great conversation.
Yeah, and I remember some of your Facebook posts of, gee, this is, and it was like you wrote a book. It was like 5 screens worth of, this is the craziness of that happened on Monday. This is the craziness that happened on Tuesday. And I didn't think I was going to make it on Wednesday. And it got even crazier on Thursday. But you know what? You made it. You fought it off, and you're here today, and you're here to be able to tell the stories of your struggles and your accomplishments. You know, over 40 creative years of being an artist and a creator. And we're all grateful, and we're all better off for all those wonderful things you've done and you've accomplished. And I'm just glad you're still around. I was worried that, you know, it was going to be the end. And you know, more recently you've always helped us out with the U.S. Sand Sculpting Challenge. You come down and cheer us on. You do a YouTube video or two, and you display the artist on your channel. You got a great channel. You got over 4,000 subscribers, I believe. Congratulations, Mr. Henderson. That's a fabulous run.
Yes.
And you judge, and you know, it's nice to know that there's a true artist of the art form that's part of the judging crew, and not the, you know, the judge that does ceramics
at the community college. I'm just saying,
right. Yeah.
That's what it'll be.
Yeah. And I remember about 2 years ago, the organizers of the event got together and said, let's give Dave Henderson a Lifetime Achievement Award. And I remember that day you walked up on that stage, and I think it was Joyce and Gordon and probably Bruce Phillips handed you that plaque and thanked you for a lifetime of willing to sacrifice, you know, like your son not recognizing you, or the torture and pain, or all the free work that you did. I remember doing a lot of free work in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
For the art, for you know, to help evolve the art. And I couldn't think of anyone who is more deserving, especially now, as you watch your videos that you post to either YouTube or Facebook or Instagram now, except some videos where you're not only do you talk about the rock and waterscape or your art, but you talk about how you can make your life better, how you can make someone else's life better. And that's giving back to your community, giving back to your community, and that's greatly appreciated. You know, that renaissance of being able to do that here just in the last few years, when you were the sickest of sick, struggling to keep everything together, you were still doing that and giving, and it's
Well, I
remarkable.
think even during this, you know, we call it COVID times. In the COVID times, you know, that's what that you always gave words of encouragement and spirituality.
We'd call
right?
it, and we'd go, "What's going on, Dave?" And you'd sit there and squawk and complain about things, and we'd squawk and complain about things back to you, and that was always fun.
And there'd always be words of encouragement, words of wisdom.
Yeah.
Yes. And
that seems like what we should do. You know, there's a book by John Eldridge called Wild at Heart. He's a Christian author, and he talks about the various stages, particularly for men, that they go through. And there's the cowboy, the warrior, the king, and the sage, I think it's something like that. And so most men traverse and go through those, and they're sometimes overlapping and stuff, and and that kind of thing and stuff. But in our latter years, I think it's important for us to share what we discovered that works, and maybe let folks know, that approach didn't really work real good. Staying bitter about things that have happened, being unforgiving, being all wrapped up in causes outside yourself while forgetting and neglecting your family, as noble as those causes might be. And I, for one, wish they had courses, and they were required at every single college, community college, all the way to Harvard. And that is a course on forgiveness and a course on gratitude. Yeah. Those two things, in terms of the human journey, to me, yes, those two things on the human journey are the most important things you want to get really good at. And because life will hurt you, people that love you may not understand or do something from a position that causes you some pain and this sort of thing. And it's not really irrational to remember that. I mean, we don't want to be harmed and hurt again, but at the same time, we're all human. We're all doing the best job we can. And then we also have to remember to do that for ourselves. We've got to give ourselves some grace and mercy, and be patient with ourselves. Sometimes I think out of certain family dynamics, there's a perfectionism, and I'm guilty of that with my kids. And my kids, God bless them, have been able to get past some of that stuff that I did when I was younger. And my pursuit of my business, I did neglect my family, and I caused harm. And God bless them, but they've worked past a lot of that. They've communicated things, and I've said, yeah, I was a real a-hole. I was wrapped up in my own dreams and desires and glory, fame and fortune and all that stuff. And, so I was neglecting those that I am the most dearly love and the closest to me. So we want to really pay attention to that, because this world really can swallow you up with notoriety, especially with the social media thing. Before you know it, you're like all upset about something that happened on your social site, while, your son or daughter or wife or what have you, husband, is sort of, like out in the background, and you're like, wait, what about them? Right. What about? So I really, I'm more aware of that now than I ever have. And as I mentioned to you, Greg, earlier, in the end, all my photographs are probably going to end up in a dumpster, and I cherish them because they were each one has its own story, and it helps me remember my journey and stuff. But it really gets down to what you're doing with the people in your life, and really getting those relationships dialed in, like you guys and your marriage and your close friends and family. We really want to get to be an expert at forgiving and being thankful, especially for those in our world right around us. We do that right. If you get really good, like I said, there should be a course at the colleges. You got to pass Forgiveness 101 before you can graduate. I mean, how about forgiving the people that didn't vote in your mind the right way? Now you don't want to put them on.
Right, right. I know. We can't even. I know. We know.
It's a crazy time, but that's hard to do. And I think you need a spiritual side. You need to have a faith that can give you the tools. We're not supposed to live with the emotional loads that we are now having to carry. Our young people, the millennials, the stress and the stuff they're under, the things they're seeing in their media, in their phone, in their pocket. We never had that. And I think we were blessed by that, because it's too much. So you got to get
too much and too soon. Like, I don't know, the stressors, and I don't know, even I think they get exposed to things they should probably never see. You know what I mean? And especially when it's marked over 18, and then you find out that they see flashes of that or whatever, that doesn't even.
Well, it's an insidious thing. The people running those things don't have a sense of morality and ethics, I don't think, really, and their values are kind of in a different place. But this is the world we live in. So if we can personally just take hold of what we have control over, and that's ourselves. I read a paper once in one of the workshops I did, and it's the 100% rule. You're 100% responsible for your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. 100%. So you can't blame somebody else because of this or that. That's why you did this or that. No, you do and have control over all of you and how you think. You hear this phrase, it's not what happens to you in life, it's how you think and how you respond to what happens in life that's going to make the difference. And you see amazing people, Corey Ten Boom and other people who've had these horrific, terrible tragedies happen, and they're quadriplegics, and they have the richest, most amazing, fulfilling lives. So we really want to focus on that. And I've always tried to do that. And I wasn't very good when I was younger. I tried being grumpy and bitter for a little while, and this ain't working. I'm miserable. So, try to dump that stuff off. If it doesn't serve you and your family, get rid of it. Dump it. Let it go and move on. And so that's what I've been trying to do.
The pictures, the photographs, Greg and I have sat here and just played the idea off of our heads. Like, there needs to be like a type of museum. This sand sculpting. I don't know. Can I just make a statement?
Yeah,
both of you correct me. Got started in Southern California. That's how. I think it needs its own place where people come and look at the history and who started it, who are the legends, and it's all photography. So here's photographs, and then there should be. This is just us talking, having a dream. Some area for display, more than one area for display, where there's like a continuous sand sculpting. Sculptures and various exhibits throughout the building, yes.
You'd need to find a philanthropist. You'd need to find someone who backs this idea and is passionate.
We need, in times like now. I'm just gonna say, in times like now, we need, if we're gonna have more rich people, we need more rich people doing good than putting their money to. You know what I'm talking about? Funding.
The arts.
Chaos we don't need. Let's put if you're going to be wealthy, then start doing good things with the money instead of doing the
there's
break down the culture. That's what's the use? Go away.
Well, we've got the beauty. It's evil and bad all together, the online world that we have now. And I think there'd be a neat place to, without as much work and labor and effort and expense, to try and set up something, maybe an online platform that's dedicated to these various goals and purposes. So that might be something a little more digestible and doable.
I guess it could be something like an online, someone doing a sculpture and it being projected online.
Well, you guys are doing this work because you're documenting each artist that you interview as you move along and grow this platform, if you will. And it's not just about the pieces, and we talk about the ethereal aspect of them, how they go away. I never liked that. I took so many darn pictures. I was looking through my pictures and I've got like 7, 8, 9 pictures from the same location. He's like, how many pictures do you need, Dave? So, and I used to get multiple pictures because I used it for marketing. I'd send them out and stuff. But You guys documenting the human side of this. Who are these people? Why did they do what they do? And how does that translate into human experience and the benefits of engaging in the creative process? I think taking all the creativity out of our schools and getting rid of the art classes was just a big bad move. I don't think it helps new doctors, architects, engineers. They need to learn the creative side of themselves to then think outside the box with their skill sets and come up with new therapies, engineering, formulas, etc. So that's a great idea. The work you guys are doing, I'm so excited about, and I commend you for it.
There's no thank you, David. There's no, without the art, there's no application of I thought about this because remember it was STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and then they went and added the A for art, and now it's STEAM, because I think that they figured out that these, I'm going to just call them kids, these kids would show up on the job and not know how to do, they knew the theory, they had never worked with their hands. And I'm thinking about, for instance, is it like satellite development or spaceship development? Remember, we're having this, I don't want to say too many names, but we're having lunch with someone who works in this type of field. And our son has a master's degree in physics. And when we told him that he knows how to work on cars, he knows how to fabricate, he knows how to do, he leaned forward and he's like, he knows how to work, he knows how to do these things, he knows how to build, he knows how to work with tools, yes, because otherwise you're just hiring an egghead. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Educated egghead. So if you're not working with your hands and taking the things that you're learning all day in class and going, how could I build with that? That's what you're being taught. So now, I don't know, our kids have always had the sand sculpting. And so one of them is getting a PhD in chemistry. And she has two full degrees, chemistry and mathematics. She's a girl with a mathematics degree. And then our son has this master's degree in physics with a specialty in photonics, which is light.
Wow.
And so they start talking in another language, but because they've both done sand sculpting and they've had to measure and shovel and think and draw and build and be out in the hot sun and slog it out, right? Even that's humbling. They're both very successful. They're very successful. They are.
The work ethic. Yeah, they got the work ethic
kids
too.
Aren't getting that.
No.
Okay, we're now back. We took a little break. We lost our audio, so we need to kind of go back to where we were and pick up the stories. And I know Dave and I have talked a little bit with
Dave had
Kathy
a story. Dave
about
had a story he wanted to tell us.
So
I have a story. This is in relationship to the egghead comment Kathy brought up.
Okay.
This is very interesting to me, and it's true story. My nephew, Daniel Henderson, same name as my firstborn son, Daniel. He is a graduate of Harvard in statistics.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That's
impressive.
We're talking really nice shaped egghead right there, baby.
Well,
anyway,
can he get on the pile?
Has he subscribed to your YouTube channel?
Oh, cool. So he came and I had some time off. He graduated from Harvard. His brother, by the way, also did. I think they got a 2-for-1 discount, actually. Pretty crazy. But he actually asked me if he could come work with me because he needed some work. And he had graduated, and I think it was like a summertime thing or whatever. And so I said, sure, no problem. So Daniel comes and works with me. He's a graduate of Harvard. And for the first week or so, I'm like, Daniel, what are you doing here? You graduated from Harvard, dude. I mean, you could just walk anywhere and say, hire me. And it seems like they'd say, Harvard? Yeah, no problem. There you go. 150 grand a year. Do something. Whatever you do it. But he's working for $14, $15 an hour. And to your point that you guys, having raised your kids with projects and the work ethic and the problem solving of doing a sand project is adaptive. You're always counterpunching, looking at the thing. You're also looking at efficiency. How quickly can we expedite our project, meeting the goal of the time, meeting the subject matter, communicating with the client in a way that makes them think everything's in control, even though maybe it isn't, and there's some problem you're having to wrestle with. So all those logistics, you guys they've had that experience, your kids, with that process. Well, my nephew Daniel came and worked with me, and he continued to work with me, and I was just baffled. He'd never held an angle grinder, for example, the kind you cut rebar with a carbide disc, or you put diamond on it and you can score concrete. And I do that before I add some cement so it sticks better. And he was utterly impressed and fascinated by the problem solvings in the 3 dimensions of the rock creations, which is what I was doing in this case. And he worked with me for weeks, and he continued to be impressed. And he told me this, I just am fascinated by how you solve problems. And there's an efficiency to it, like going to your car and coming back. Make sure your hands are full, either direction. If you're going to do a job, you don't want to do 27 trips. If you can do, 6 or so. So always keep your hands full going to and from the van or the work van or the work vehicle, for example. and then as you're creating these things with rebar, concrete, you're mixing concrete, the liquidity of the material, you add the acrylic to it so it sticks better and resists water penetration. But all these, to me, they're just like on the face common sense. But if you've lived here and you've excelled in the area of academics, and they've changed away, like we talked about earlier, from hands-on creative processes, then you end up with a person who's sort of not quite fully fleshed out, you will. So Daniel actually spent time working with me for weeks and weeks and weeks. And, finally got a job working somewhere as a statistician, I believe it is. Yes. Smart kid, obviously. And so he was fascinated by that process. So there's a wisdom and a knowledge and capabilities that you have as you're building in 3 dimensions. It's also extremely satisfying because you end up with a thing that was not there, just like a sand sculpture. You have air, and you're filling that air with something that never existed, that can cause emotional responses. It can make people smile, laugh, cry, grab them by the throat if it's a very poignant piece. And just going to the rock work I do, you're creating something that looks like God made it. And that's always been my target, to make it look like God made it. And so, to your egghead comment, we do a disservice to the.
There's a lot of eggheads out there, right? But Greg, you said to me one time that you think in 3 dimension,
right?
And I don't. I think in maybe 2 dimension or something. I don't know.
Right. I always see the world in 3 dimensions very quickly. I always have
architect.
The architect in me. But
it's something you can develop, Kathy. Kathy, you can.
Yeah, I need to. Yes.
That. And it's true.
Practice desire, right?
Yeah, I never thought I was a very talented artist. I didn't think I was very skilled. Part of the struggles of youth and dysfunction and the shame-based personalities that so many people ended up with. John Bradshaw on PBS had a whole series on that, the shame-based personalities. So there's challenges to overcome in life, and we all don't get out of this without having to try and work through that stuff, because it can really impede our success, our fulfillment, our sense of happiness. And so I started off thinking I wasn't good an artist. Well, I could only carve one eye for a while there for the walruses. But you're
not the only one that does one eye.
Right-handed, and then you got to do the whole left-handed.
And then also, how's your body holding up? If you're on a pile for 12 hours, which apparently I was, and people have told me that, and I'm like, really? Are you kidding? Really? I did that? And oh yeah, Dave, 12, 13, 14 hours, pretty routine. You've got to figure out how to move your body in a way that doesn't just grind it into the dirt, and pace yourself, switch to hands, be ambidextrous, start working the other hand to carve things out. And that develops, I think, part of your brain stuff too. So it can be learned. And I really think almost everybody can start developing that ability. You break down the elephant and you just take a little part of that package at a time. And building a little house out of a 5-gallon bucket or a pound up out of a trash can, you block it out, you make a cube. Well, we know what cubes look like and stuff. And so you can go ahead and then cut the V. And so there's steps. It's like those things you see on YouTube, or you take one of those classes and they do exactly what I do, and they make a line and you do what they do. And before you know it, you did a great little Mickey Mouse or something that you never would have been able to do by yourself. So it's a stepping stone process.
The Bob Ross challenge. We did that one night and we could not believe what we turned out. Oil paintings.
Yeah. Bob Ross. The old in an hour we created a Bob Ross landscape painting in oil, and we'd never worked with oil before.
No, I wish I could go pull it off the wall and show it.
And it was pretty good, right?
Yeah.
I'll put up images of our Bob Ross paintings.
No, well, mine's very literal. Yours is very good, but when he said put white lines, I'm just like, okay, a white line.
Yeah, you have to jump into the void. You got to jump into these places. If you've not been there, you got to jump in and just try. So many folks, I think get hammered over the years, either through their schooling or parents or their peers, and they're driven down.
Trauma was they've had while they were growing up. They let that.
Yeah, it's tough being a kid, no matter what, and but we have to try and push past that, and that's where you always want to try to step outside your comfort zone. If you never step your comfort zone, you're not going to really be learning and growing, and that's what life is. You hear this story of it's better to have tried to do something, get to your 80s and 90s and go, wow, why didn't I try that? Mm-hmm. So I've tried skydiving once, hang gliding once till I broke my arm. And what was the other one? So do all these crazy. I did it once. I did it. Don't need to do it again.
That's good advice. So one thing I want to touch on.
Skip some of that skydiving. Yeah.
With Dave before we get off this call, because we try to keep it to at least 2 hours. It's hard to go beyond 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And that's to kind of have you tell us a little bit about your more recent life and your business with the rock and waterscape business. And I'd like to show some of your work with that. I think you've got a great following on YouTube with people that love making rocks, and they've bought your books and they've listened to your classes. And I think that's a great little success story that kind of happened out of nowhere, and through patience and time, you created a great little avenue to share your expertise with a lot of people all around the world. And I heard your story of that maybe about a year ago, and thought that was pretty inspirational.
Yeah, it's an amazing world we live in right now. I was just texting someone in Australia who wanted to get some feedback on artificial rock stuff, and I've talked to people in South Africa and New Zealand and Europe as well, all over the country and stuff. So your ability to share your passion and your personality is pretty much wide open. The YouTube channel I started 7 or 8 years ago cost me nothing, zero. You just set it up and then put videos there, and it grows. This is all organic growth. I've never paid and done any advertising. I don't think more than just maybe $20 once on Facebook or something. But the potential right now for people to monetize their skill sets is wide open. You can be a consultant in virtually anything, and people, if you have fun with what you're doing and you share that passion with a little twinkle in your eye, people are drawn to that. We love the authentic, and we're so burnt out on the pompous, the salesman-y kind of vibe you get from some people. And not that they're bad people. I'm not trying to judge others that way, but it's really it's an amazing opportunity right now. So I started out doing sand sculpture just for fun while I was a dental tech. At the end of my career, I had generated multi-millions of dollars in gross sales, because it was a long career. It was 25, 30 years or whatever it is, maybe 20 years, I guess, and they overlap. But I got into rock work the same way. I knew nothing. I knew nothing about sand work. I knew nothing about fake rock construction and began to just push into that void and experimented, practiced, built some water features, back in my house where we used to live down in the Sierra Mesa. But I always enjoyed the challenge of building either a waterfall, a sand sculpture, or a business. And it's exciting. What an amazing thing to be able to take your passions, your interests, and get it honed down pretty good to where total strangers call you up and say, "Hey, Dave, come on over here. Can you give me a hand with this? Give me some suggestions. What would you do?" And then you want to serve. You got to come with humility, but a spirit of servancy, if that's a word, to help them get what they want. Like somebody said, if you get people what they want more than anybody else, you'll be more wealthy than most anybody else. I think it was Zig Ziglar or somebody like that said something of that sort. Yeah. So if we get away from just satisfying our egos and just the almighty dollar, those things fizzle out pretty quick. And people right now have a radar awareness of people coming from that motive. And I've had a lot of people tell me, I just love your videos. Like you're just like my best friend. Oh gosh, I got to tell you this story. You guys, sorry, I go on and on. This is so powerful. I got an email from a homicide detective. I don't know if I can say this without crying because it's so powerful. He sent me an email and he said, "Dave, I just want you to know how much I appreciate your videos. They're so much fun to watch, and looks like you're having so much fun. I work in a world that no human being should really have to work in and see. The things I've seen, no one should ever have to see. And I want you just to know that watching your videos gives me a break away from that and takes me out of that world. And so God bless you. Keep up the good work." And these kind of things can happen when you're authentic from your heart and you're putting it out there and you're trying to impact people in a positive way. The world has changed one person at a time, it really is. And for me to hear that kind of stuff, it just, it's very humbling, but very satisfying because I'm not planning and trying to do anything of that sort other than just have fun. Try and make someone laugh and smile every day is one of my sort of things I like to do. Every day I want to make someone laugh and smile every day. And so that's kind of that's kind of my baseline way of living, I think. And if you laugh and you smile,
right,
your brain lines up with that a little more and you're going to be a happier, smilier person.
Happiness is a choice.
Yeah, it's so true. So you were asking me, Greg, what were you asking me, Greg, about?
So I was going to say, tell me about a couple of your
rock stuff,
more recent rock projects.
That's right. Yeah. Well, again, it started from nothing. So you practice, you learn. There wasn't any real books or trainings out there. Or if they were $6,000 for a few days of work.
And filling that void.
Yeah. And so you just puzzle it through. But just like the sand work, each project has its individual challenges. But now you're working in a permanent media, rebar, concrete, texture coats, usually a mortar mix, which means it doesn't have aggregate in it, any rock in it per se, pea gravel or what have you. And so my favorite thing, which is getting more popular, is these grottos that you can actually swim into. But on one side of the waterfall looks to be a big boulder, and two of them on both sides, and the pinch between is where the water falls into the pool. But in fact, those aren't just boulders. On the inside, that whole interior is hollow. So you've got a wall of concrete and finished texture coating that's maybe 4 inches. So then you end up having this interior space that you finish out and faux rock it out, put some conduit in there for lights to be able to give it some magic in the evening. And it's just a whole nother world. There's something strange about going into a side of a structure with water falling, the sound of it, that looks like a cave. It sort of is. And it transports you out of Southern California into the Blue Grotto in Italy or something like that. It's just this fascinating, weird thing that happens. And so we've been doing a lot of these grotto structures, but also slides people are really enjoying. I just finished one up in Poway. I'm busier than I've ever been. I'm kind of overwhelmed, frankly. But if you provide something good for people and you promise this, but you over deliver, always promise this, but over deliver. So they're like, wow, that's even more than I expected. They become your sales force. I don't have a sales force. Most of my work is word of mouth before the online thing, but now with the Facebook post and messaging and then the YouTube stuff, I'm getting calls. I mean, all over the place. And I'm buried. I'm more work than I'll ever really be able to completely do. But it's the same thing as the sand work, but you're just working in a permanent media and you want it to last and you want it to be built structurally and strong. You have to follow the engineering if you're doing a new pool. Whereas these remodels where you're adding your water feature into an existing pool, I build them to spec into code anyway, but you don't, maybe you do need to have a permit or something. I don't know. Pool builders that I work with haven't, told me that I needed to do that, but in any event, that's what the story has been for a while now. And we're over, we probably 1.2 mil, maybe 1.6 in my career in rock work. And my biggest year was 350 grand when I had 3 workers and I'd make the bubbles, the rock bubbles in rebar, burlap on the inside, chicken wire on the outside. And I ended up with stockpiles of these bubbles and I'd get a call and I'd load up my trailer with maybe 10 or 12 of these rock bubbles and I'd show up on site and just puzzle piece them together and then weave them in together with some 3/8 inch rebar. You tie it off with tie wire, you're ready to go. So it was a very quick way to go, but I was doing 3 jobs at once and it was too much. So I'm one job, maybe I'll do 1.5. They overlap, but I'm getting too old. I've decided that I'm retired till about 10 a.m. every morning. I'm having my coffee, my tea. I'm going to chill, talk to the wife and the kids. And then I go back to work and I'm not retired for a little while, but we really want to cherish the time we have in our latter years. The hourglass obviously has way less in the top than it does in the bottom. And I know that for me for sure, because I'm kind of on borrowed time. If there wasn't transplants, dialysis, I wouldn't be here 15 years ago, probably. I'd be dead. So God bless, Western science and what they can do now. It isn't an uncomfortable journey at times. It can be pretty brutal. And but I just try to weather those fairly well. I mean, there's been a few times like the transplant I just got, I had it in there for 2 or 3 weeks and I was like, get the damn thing out of me. I want to go back to dialysis because I am so uncomfortable and so miserable. Anyway, there's a whole story there, but for 2 weeks I didn't eat, 2 weeks I didn't sleep, literally. So you go a little nuts when you can't sleep or eat and in chronic pain. And so, you hopefully live and learn and be thankful. Every day, you guys out there who you're listening to me, if you lay down in your bed and nothing hurts, count yourself blessed and be thankful. Because there's a lot of people out there, my family, my dad, my brother, they're in chronic pain. My brother's been fighting melanoma for years. I had melanoma. They trimmed off this part of my ear right here. And so now I have an old man, big saggy ear, which will grow forever till probably this big. But this one's nice and little. I like the composition. As an artist, I'm going, what?
You had an ear lift or something.
Yeah, this one's better. I wanted to do this one, but he said, no, that's cosmetic. You have to pay out of pocket. I'm like, well, I don't mind it that bad. But I'm out of balance. It's not good. Artists, we want symmetry and balance. And so, one other point on this.
Okay.
When you're doing a sand project, I've told people this, and Greg, you probably understand this already. When you're trying to carve the cracks and do stuff in rocks, you gotta fight the human tendency for symmetry. I don't know how many projects I've been to where I'm asked to fix what someone else did, and I've seen rocks that have like fish scales. They just take their arm and there's a natural swing of the arm with the trowel, and they make a fish scale. It's like, look at a rock, look at the real thing. There's a balance to the asymmetry. And human beings, we want to make it straight and we want to make it like this. Very rarely do you see a vertical straight wall on rock. It's there. And same thing with horizontals. You don't see that in nature much. They're there. But God makes the best rocks. If you examine the real thing and try to study it a little bit, even hold pictures and learn how to draw the rocks. So I've got some courses on that talk about that. If you can control a pencil then you can control a piece of rebar and how it should be shaped, or a trowel and how to move and carve and sculpt the cement and get that look. You want to make it look like God made it. You want people to not know how you got this thing in there, or did you build the pool around it? How do you do that? And that's the goal. If you get that, you're doing good.
Yep. You can draw it. You
I'm
can
like
carve
ready
it.
to
I believe
get
it.
by the book and take the course.
So I've already bought the book.
I mean, that whole thing is,
So we can listen to it.
Okay.
when we
Oh,
travel.
that's right. Okay.
Yeah, Dave took
There's-
the time to read.
What is your YouTube channel?
you know what, if you just Google Dave Henderson rock sculptor,
Okay.
you'll find me. Yeah, and I tried to figure out how to change the name to something I could just say, which is nice,
Yeah.
short and sweet. But it's yeah. If you just Google Dave Henderson rock sculptor, I think you'll find me in there, because there's not too many guys doing as many videos on fake rock, but more people are getting into it. But
All right.
I
Well,
love it.
Dave, thank you so much for taking your time and sharing your
This was
journey
a lot
with
of
us.
fun.
It
Thank
was a
you
lot
so
of fun.
much.
yeah,
And with that, I think we should wrap this interview and give us about a week to get it produced and put together, maybe a week and a half, sometimes earlier, sometimes longer. And then we'll let you know when it comes out, and you can join the watch party.
there you go. That's cool.
For all of us, for all of our YouTube watchers and followers, thanks for sticking with us on this interview to the end. It was a lot of fun spending time with Dave. Remember to smash that like button. Remember to
Smash it.
subscribe and what
Hit
we're
the
supposed to
bell notification, write some comments,
Yes. And make sure to
go to
visit
Jane's site.
Dave's
Yes.
site.
Yeah, my site's it's my first name Dave, and then my middle initial R for Robert. So it's DaveRHenderson.com, and there's links to YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook there. So DaveRHenderson.com, and you can find stuff. The store is DaveHenderson.podia, Podia. I've got free PDF downloads there that talk about the 5 best qualities to making artificial rock, and there's a bunch of other free stuff, and there's some other little courses and stuff. But yeah, DaveRHenderson.com and DaveHenderson.podia, Podia.com, and check it out and let me know what you think. There's free stuff there. And yeah, learn, grow, become is one of the things I like to throw in there at the end of videos sometimes. Learn, grow, become, ever changing.
Love that.
Great
Yes.
advice
Thank
for
you so much,
us all.
Dave.
So with
Cool.
that, we'll see everybody real soon. Maybe for me, I'll see you at the beach. For Dave, he'll say on at a swimming pool, maybe.
Right, and then what is
I
that?
always say I'm on the rock pile.
Yeah, okay, and you say something about sand behind your ears.
Yeah, don't wash that sand off behind your ears. I got something there right now. I just know it.
It gets in your teeth and your food. It's not good.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, signing off. Thanks for joining,
All right.
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye-bye.
Peace out.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, how was that, guys? How was that? Did you watch the whole thing? If you got to this part, you did. Anyway, thanks so much for watching Greg and Kathy's interview of me. It was really nice of them to take the time to do that, and just an amazing story and journey. He's documented some of the other people in the industry. My old mentor and boss, Todd Vanderplein, Kent Trollin's another event planner, a sculptor, also a super talented guy. And Greg's continuing to interview people and in this particular industry. So you learn a whole bunch of stuff about marketing, project management, project producing, and these sort of things, as well as the sculpting side of things, for sure. So anyways, hope you enjoyed it. Remember, Greg Lebon, Archisand. Search that in YouTube and you will find his site, and you go to the playlist if you want to learn how to do sand sculpting. He's got a whole series of how-to videos on that, and you can check those out. All kinds of cool stuff. He has been building an amazing sand castle, and it is just sand and water right there in his home, and pretty cool castle that he's put together there with bridges and windows and corbels and crenellations and all kinds of turrets and all kinds of cool stuff, which you can do in sand, obviously. And so you can go to that playlist then and check and see the how-to steps of it. as well as the interviews, again, as I mentioned. So thank you so much for watching. Go to Greg's channel, subscribe, maybe make a comment or two, or tell them what you think. That'd be awesome. They're really good people, and we just want to support each other, and we should do that out there anyway. So wherever you are, be kind to one another, love someone, and help them out if they need some help any way you can, and make the world a better place. So Mr. Dave, checking out. Until next time, be kind, be loving, learn, grow, become, and make the world a better place. And as I always say, get really good at forgiving and gratitude. Forgiveness and gratitude, the keys are to a happy life and a fulfilling and productive life, and a adding to the world life as opposed to taking away. So there you go, man. Those ramblings at the end of my video. So have a great day. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.